Our guest today is helping Canadian children learn about and appreciate our nation's history. Not an easy task when it's been reported that we have one of the weakest records in the world on passing it on to our students. Crystal Lavalley is here to talk about it. She is the founder of I Am Compelled. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so exciting what you're doing with students. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing. Why history? Are Canadians, I think, okay, I'm just going to tell you, I think it's because we're terrible about boasting about ourselves or remembering anything good about ourselves.
I think it's partly because it's, I dare I say it, our Canadian history is a little bit boring. So
we're boring. I think we're modest, but you think we're boring. Okay, so you chose to teach history to students because you think it's boring.
Well, I chose to teach history to students because of the statistics that you just read. So in 2010, the Canadian Council on Learning suggested, or they stated, that Canada had the worst record for teaching national history. So at first when I saw that statistic, I said, I can understand, but I asked myself the question, I wonder why that is. So I did a little bit more digging, a little bit more research, and education experts argued that the reason why students or any citizen of any country needs to know their history is because it provides an identity. And when you have an identity, you can actually build for a stronger future.
Right.
So that's kind of where we started. So I said, when you look at a lot of young people, we connected with, I Am Compelled connected with the top third gang specialist in all of Canada. And he says the number one reason that kids get into trouble, that he counsels young people getting into mischief, is because they don't know their identity. And if they knew who they were, then they'd be able to contribute to building, the bigger picture. And I love that one quote I heard a couple years ago when we first started. They said, if you teach a generation their rights, they'll grow up to be selfish. But if you teach them their responsibilities, then they'll grow up to give back to the nation. And so that's why I Am Compelled exists. We also started because the Globe and Mail, they released an article around the same time that said more than 50% of the world would forsake their native homelands to live here. So we echoed Spider-Man's uncle, who says, with great power comes great responsibility. So we say to the question, what are you compelled to do to build on our foundations and continue that legacy, and so that we can have a stronger future?
It's a great comparison because if you look at the States, our next door neighbor and kind of our big brother, they're great about celebrating their history and they have such a strong identity. And Canada, I think some of our identity is that we're not the US, but we need a little bit more than that, right?
We do. And I think right now it's the stories of the people who have gone before us. And even though our history isn't we don't have a long history. Our history is very short. We have a rich history, which means, when I say rich, I mean we have incredible men and women who went before us, who sacrificed then, never really knowing if they would ever benefit from their sacrifice, which floors me. I said, who is willing to sacrifice now for generations down the road? And one of the things I realized when I realized I was a Métis citizen is that when the First Nations Métis, when we go to make decisions, we make decisions now that will affect 7 generations down the line. So 7 generations, do we want those kids to have clean water? Do we want them to be a culture of life where they honor people? Do we want those students to learn how to give back? And so we take those stories of those great men and women and we make it come alive for students so that they can learn and apply the history, so it's not just statistics.
Yeah, and I wondered that. So, students are kind of ADD, like their attention span's not easy, especially if it's going to come to history. I remember sleeping, I'm sure, through at least one history class.
Yeah.
So how do you make it come alive to students?
We use media and theater. So we have to talk their language. So we know that this generation is very tech savvy. And even some other people's attention spans, not mentioning anyone, my own, said, if the show is boring, I'm going to be bored. So we have to keep things moving. So we incorporate 2 characters. One is gung-ho about history, making a difference, high energy. The other character is apathetic, always on their iPod, playing games, Angry Birds, Minecraft, whatever the hot new.
Right, and everything goes bad for the guys not paying attention, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
You got it. So the setting takes place in the museum. So whether we're doing a Black History show or a regular Canadian history show, we try to set the stage with landmarks that are in Canada that students may not necessarily be able to go to, but we can bring it to the school, set the stage, and we use the media and theater to interact. And the students actually go around, there's 3 buttons around the exhibit that they have to push to learn more about their heritage. So we focus on honoring the First Nations people, because without them, we wouldn't have been here, because they taught us how to
Absolutely.
live and cook and hunt and eat. So without them, we wouldn't be here. So.
And that's, of course, righting a wrong that, has been done to them,
Yeah.
really.
Right. So that's one of the things we want to say. And what, as you know, in my journey and my travels, connecting with all the different school boards and meeting with trustees, we find that we've got this incredible group of people, whether they're with the Catholic board, the public board, the private board, they all want the same thing, which is to bridge the gap between the history of what we've learned as predominantly the European history. But everybody wants to bridge this gap, restore honor to that culture, and say to the Aboriginal students as well, hey, you're just as valuable and we need you.
Absolutely. That's such an important message. And one of the things I love, you're using history to inspire young people to change their community. It's like unto something, right? And one of the students that you brought us a story, I want to show it and then we can talk about it, is Connor. It's a great story. Let's take a look.
Hi, my name is Connor and I'm 8 years old. Last summer we built birdhouses and sold them on our lawn to make money for Joseph Brand Hospital. We found wood on the side of the road and recycled it by making birdhouses. So far we've made over 600 birdhouses and raised over $13,000 for the hospital. The money that we raise will go to the section of the hospital where the babies are born. It makes me feel good to give money to the hospital. Our goal is to raise $25,000 for the hospital. Yay! This award I got from the city and this one I got from Ontario. I am compelled to be an excellent student, citizen, and solution.
Well, I just love that story. Connor, he's so inspiring, so young. Yeah. What inspired him to want to make a difference with the hospital, the maternity ward?
I don't know his story, but you could go online to look at his Birdhouse Foundation. Mm-hmm. I think he started it with his dad, and his dad, they just saw wood at the side of the road and decided to use it for the good. And he's now raised, I think he's raised over $200,000 to help the section of the hospital where the babies are born.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And you know what I love about it, Crystal? As a young person, I really wanted to change the world. That's never really changed in my life over these years, but I always felt like I was waiting until I was old enough to be taken seriously to do something. And I see nowadays, you see kids doing amazing things. Their parents are empowering them, and society sees that they have something to offer. And how important is it for kids to hear that message when you talk to them?
You know what? I'm so glad you asked that question, because when we started in Winnipeg, we had one girl stand up right at the end of the presentation, because we asked them the question again, what are you compelled to do to build on those foundations? And a grade 5 girl stood up and she said, I am compelled to write a letter to God to ask Santa to send money to help those in the Philippines. But her teacher was crying. We said, hey, whatever method you need to get, you just do it.
It's a little convoluted, but yes.
But we said, the teacher said she didn't know she had a voice and she didn't know that she could make a difference. And that's what we're finding all over the place. We say it doesn't matter how small you are or how big you are. Don't let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example in how you walk, talk, and act. And we've had kids come alive, their hearts come alive. They said, do you think I could really become the next Prime Minister of Canada? And we were in the ghetto of the ghettos. And we have students say, why was it Black people chosen as slaves? Or why do people have so much hatred in their hearts toward other races? What can I do to be compelled? And we said, keep your heart clean, because what's in your heart will come out in your actions. Mm-hmm. So keep your heart clean and just keep loving people like the world is going to end. Keep loving people. So.
And how long have you been doing this?
For 1 year.
For 1 year.
We're official registered educational charity, and it's been a lot of hard work. But we wouldn't trade it for anything, because the charities, as you know, are in the business of transforming hearts. And so that's what we're seeing. That's the fuel that keeps us going.
Well, we love what you're doing. It's so important to invest in the next generation, the Canadian identity, the changing your community. I mean, it's just so great. If people, just really quickly, if they want to book you or get you to come to their school, what could they do? They
can go online to amcompelled.ca, or they can email us at info@amcompelled.ca, and all of the information is on the website.
Awesome. Well, we love what you're doing. We're so excited to see what's going to happen. I mean, 1 year, I know that so much more is going to happen through what you're going to do in kids' lives and new stories like Connor's coming out. So thank you so much.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So you heard that. If you're interested in bringing Crystal and her team to your school or to your kids' school, go to IamCompelled.ca to find out more.